This video is part of a series about open source business models for circular economy, produced in the context of the Open Source Circular Economy Days. You can find all videos and detailed written and visual resources for the video by following one of these links. There you might find also an updated version of the video. This is video number 3. I'll talk about ideas to keep in mind when looking for an open source business model. Platforms, new products, and a circular economy that allows you to own your stuff. I will also introduce you to 2 examples for open source companies. Okay, idea number 1, platforms or ecosystems. Successful open source products often work as platforms. They enable other actors to do something. An ecosystem with different interdependent actors emerges around the core product, and all contributions make the platform stronger and more useful for everyone. There has been written a lot about platforms. Some people tend to think that in the future everything that can become a platform will become a platform, as platforms are a fantastic way to collaborate, and openness can be the perfect enabler for healthy platforms. I will give you 2 examples for open source platforms. One is software, the other is hardware. I'll refer to these examples in the later videos again and again. I will talk about WordPress and Arduino. If you know them already, you can skip the first third of the video. If not, stay with me. Okay. The first example I'd like to talk about is WordPress. WordPress is an open source software to create blogs and websites. You can just download the software, install it, and you have a basic website running within minutes. WordPress is incredibly successful. 24% of all websites today are built with WordPress. 24%. If you have followed the links with the resources for this video, you have just been at one. How could WordPress become so big? Because it is open source. There's an incredible rich ecosystem of commercial actors around WordPress, constantly growing the system, decentralized. If you decide to hire a web designer to set up a professional website for you, there's a good chance this person will set up a WordPress page for you. The web designer will download the software, install it, and because it is open source, will be able to make all sorts of customizations for you. And maybe this person will also share these customizations with the WordPress open source community to get feedback, fame, new partners, new customers, or whatever. There are thousands of open source themes and plugins for WordPress. Everyone can just download, install and run. They are contributed by independent companies, and with every contribution, WordPress becomes stronger and more useful. Allows thousands of professional web designers to do their jobs better. The core product, WordPress, gets better all the time. The name of the company behind WordPress is Automattic, and they make money in a lot of different ways, benefiting from the ecosystem. They sell web hosting, support, premium accounts, they run ads, and do a bunch of other things you can find out about by clicking on the link provided in the resources for this video. Okay, that was a software example. I'd like to give you another example, a hardware example, from electronic hardware. This is an Arduino, a product of an Italian company, and maybe the biggest open source hardware platform in the world today. It is a microcontroller. If you are not familiar with electronics, let me briefly explain to you what this thing is. You have here on one side inputs, where you can plug in all kinds of things, like for example a sensor for temperature. And on the other side, you have all kinds of outputs, where you can plug in actors, for example a motor with a fan. The middle part has a programmable chip. You can program it and say things like, if the temperature sensor on the right says it is 30 degrees, please turn on the motor with the fan on the left side. This is what an air conditioner does. So you have built an air conditioner. And you can add a rule like, if the heat goes up to 60 degrees or higher, please turn off the motor, so the air conditioner does not set itself on fire. A microcontroller like this is part of every semi-intelligent machine in your home. There's one in your washing machine, in your microwave oven, and so on and so on. The difference is that the Arduino is open source. the hardware is open source and the software needed also. And the most important thing is that the whole culture established around the Arduino breathes openness. If you go to the Arduino website and visit the Arduino forum there, you will find over 1 million entries where people shared solutions and ideas on how to use the Arduino. People everywhere in the world built all kinds of crazy projects using Arduino, from making plants doing phone calls, to satellites, to cars, to drones, to air conditioners, to wearables. The list is endless, really. Hobbyists and professionals use the Arduino. I encourage you to do an internet image search, type in Arduino projects, and you will get an impression what is possible and what is happening. And many of those people share what they're building and how they did it. This means if you want to build, let's say, an irrigation system with an Arduino, you go online and find hundreds of projects that already did it. And you can learn from them and maybe even download existing source code. You will be much quicker by setting up your own system. And you will be able to do a lot more because you can benefit from this open source ecosystem and its culture. There are a lot of hobbyists and maker projects using Arduino, but also professionals. My guess is that the majority of all these new Internet of Things startups today build their first prototypes with Arduino, benefiting and often also contributing to the ecosystem. And every contribution makes the core product, the Arduino, ever more useful for everyone. But this is just the first part of the story, software and use cases. The second part is that a lot of other hardware companies get involved with the ecosystem by providing hardware to combine with the Arduino. The openness of Arduino makes this easy for them. An example for this are shields. A shield is something you can stick on top of the Arduino to give it new powers. For example, a regular Arduino comes without Wi-Fi, but you can buy a shield from another company, put it on top of the Arduino and add Wi-Fi. All these ideas and products added to the system. Arduino could not do this alone, but every contribution makes the system stronger, Arduino an ever more useful tool. And Arduino is selling Arduinos. So here we have a product that really exists and works commercially because it is open source. The whole difference it makes, the whole product it is because it is open source. And this leads directly into the next core idea I want to share. And this is that many products need to be reinvented to work as open source products. A lot of the products we are using today will business-wise not make sense as open source products. It won't make sense to just publish the plans, change the license and go on with business as usual. As my great colleague Sam Muir has always says, products have to be made to work as open source products. You'll need to connect them differently to a different kind of ecosystem. For some ideas or for some areas, this will mean they have to be entire different products. So they are products that benefit from openness. But luckily for the circular economy, it is the same. We have to reinvent the products along with the ecosystem around them to make them circular. So why not do the open source part and the circular economy part in one rush? And maybe, and this is the belief of the open source circular economy days, we need to make them open source in order to make them truly circular, or circular at all. I want to give you another example or concept. Last autumn, I slowly started to develop my own hardware company. It is called MiFactory. We develop open source circular furniture and other objects. For some activities, we are inspired by a project called Open Structures. What we do is we use a 3 centimeter grid in all our designs. This grid is derived from a toy for children. So now, whenever we drill holes into something, it follows the measures of the 3 centimeter grid. We call it the Berlin grid. And now the same grid is in all parts we produce for every object we make. And this means they all fit together, always, for an infinite number of constellations. This means you can win back the parts of one design and reuse it for another. Everything is modular and reusable for an endless number of different things. As I said, we call this 3 centimeter grid the Berlin grid because a 3 looks like a B. On On the MeFactory website, you can see some of our prototypes and products. Here is a balance board built with the Berlin grid. I just did the other day here in this space. And in the back, you can see a table I also built with the Berlin grid here in the past days. So most of the stuff is still early prototypes, but the key thing is we open the grid and all the parts we make. We invite and enable others to copy our solutions and ideas and to use the same grid in their designs. They can benefit from us, and if they publish what they do, we can benefit from them. And here comes the interesting thing. The more people use the grid, the more manufactured parts become available. And this results into a network effect in the parts. We experience this here in our little laboratory already. Every time we make a new part, the number of things we can do with all the others grows. You probably know this from Lego. Every time you add new bricks to your collection, more and more complex things become possible with the bricks you already have. And when several people and companies in Berlin or wherever use the same grid, everyone wins, including our customers, because the products they have in their homes grow in possibilities all the time. With every contribution, new ways to use, hack, improve or resell the parts are born constantly. All our products become richer, enabled through a whole decentralized open ecosystem of independent innovators. You might say now, hey, but one day the market is full and you will compete with each other. And I say, yes, maybe, probably, hopefully. Truth is, I wish we come to this point. Because it would mean the ecosystem has become big, strong and useful for all kinds of commercial actors. And if the ecosystem has grown that much, MeFactory has probably grown a lot with it. And I think that with the network effect in the parts, this market might have much more possibilities than we can expect or imagine at the moment. It might be much bigger. And on a side note, I like to think that this kind of openness-enabled network effects is the key road towards a circular economy. And to make a last remark on this, with the growth of the ecosystem, we at MeFactory will probably have learned a lot about smart and elegant uses of the Berlin grid. Our experience will give us a good head start. Our brand will be placed, and if not, what's the point of us being in the market? If you produce pants with pockets, you are not alone. There are thousands of other companies producing pants with pockets. You compete with them, but not on the fact that your pants have pockets, but on other levels like quality, communication, reach, and so on. And I am willing to engage in this kind of competition with other companies using the Berlin grid, especially with the circular dynamics we are in then together. Most fears people have when they think about opening up are irrational, not thought through. These fears or objections are strangely hammered into our brains. You can't make money if you don't have a patent. That's what people tend to think. But look around in your house at all the products. Most of them aren't patented. The chair, the shirts, the dishes, the carrots, the buckets, the bread, and so on. Most of the companies that made these products are profitable. The problem with these fears and unreflected objections is that they prevent us from having really interesting thoughts and ideas and from creating really interesting new products and businesses. It takes courage and vision to take action, despite of the fact that you will hear these fears and objections around every corner. This video series is for the courageous and visionary. Okay, to sum it up, MeFactory in the use of the 3 cm Berlin grid is another example for a product made to be open source. But as I just made a more political bit, I'd like to add another thought here. And this is that open source will allow us to have a circular economy where we still have the option to own our stuff. In the circular economy, videos and articles provided mostly by big companies today, you often hear the idea that for the circular economy we need to change our relationship to ownership. Access over ownership is the used term. You will not own your washing machine anymore, or your furniture, or your phone, or your clothes. No, They will still be in your house, but they will be owned by a company. So the company doesn't sell you the washing machine, it sells you a defined number of wash it. It does not sell you the phone, it just sells you calls. It does not sell you the hearing aid, it just sells you sound. I think access over ownership can be smart and make sense. But if it were the only option we have for a circular economy, I think it would be very problematic. But of course, I understand that the model makes sense for big companies because this is the only way they can talk about a circular economy without having to talk about open source. If they own the washing machine in your house, they can make sure it ends up in their factory, where they repair, refurbish and recycle it, behind closed walls. No need to enable the outside world to repair, refurbish or recycle. No need for open source. But first of all, access over ownership does not work for everything. And if it were the only option for the products where it could work, well, you could take this and transform it very quickly into a story about a dark dystopian future. I will not do this now, here in these videos, maybe some place else. I just want to say that this is very problematic if access over ownership is the only option. And that open source would allow to have a washing machine that is circular, but you can still own. Because when it's transparent how to repair, reuse, refurbish or recycle it, everyone can do it. Pick the service company you like for the job. Ownership is something good because it entails individual freedom. In a world less free, it would probably be a lot easier to create a circular economy, top down by force. But I think the goal we have is to have a circular economy and a free society, both at the same time. And open source can allow this. It is about decentralized collaboration. Okay, with this I end video number 3. It was mostly about open platforms. I introduced you to WordPress, Arduino and also the Berlin Grid. Now we have all core ideas together I wanted you to understand before we dive into the tool. The platform design flowchart, version number 0.2. That tool is supposed to help you to reinvent or rediscover your project, product, service or company as a potential open source business. The next video, number 4, starts with an introduction to the tool. And don't forget, you can find visual and written resources for this video by following one of these links.
Oh.